Project 25 was born out of the obsession that we have of figuring things out. Honestly, being 25 is weird because we either pursue certain goals without questioning if they're what we truly want, or we're not sure what direction to follow, and that leaves us with a lot of uncertainty. I'm Andrea Juarez, I'm 25, and I decided to ask my family members, friends, and people I admire about their experiences being 25, what they did, what were their beliefs, what they've learned, and what's their advice for the new generation of 20-somethings. There is a lot to live and learn, and I believe that by listening to others, we can reflect and learn a little bit more about ourselves and think about what we want for our present and for our future. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Project 25. Today I have the pleasure to interview Dani Maurice, whom I met at SAIT in Calgary back in 2018 at the Students Association. She is now a marketing strategist and lives in Toronto. And welcome, Dani. It's been a while. How are you?
Hi, Andrea. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a while, hey?
Yeah, it's been so long. Like just chatting before the podcast, I think that what you're doing with like Project 25 is just very interesting and really like hit home for me when I was like scrolling through LinkedIn, and I knew that it was something that I had to be part of.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you know what? I really appreciated that. But yeah, feel like many of us feel like on that boat. It's gonna be interesting, and I'm excited for our conversation. So, Dani, I know that you are 26, and however, I think that one single year can unpack a whole ton of growth. So, I am very interested in hearing your experience. So, can you tell me, because you were even like saying before the interview that when you were at school, you thought everything was going to be like clear cut, like, like graduating from university, get a job, and then keep going. And I feel like it was similar to me. Like I felt like I had an idea of what I wanted, and then I realized that maybe not. So I wanted to ask you, what did you do when you were 25? Like where you were graduated, I believe. So where did you work, or like what were your hobbies?
Yeah, so when I was 25, I had just moved to Toronto during the pandemic. So it was basically lockdown. It made it like very hard to meet people, do things. I was working remotely from Calgary. I took advantage of the whole like work from home and picked up and went. I was working for a startup. We were starting from almost nothing, just trying to redefine banking of more of like a values-based and ethical banking. I worked with an entrepreneur through an investment bank, and she invited me to join the project. I had so much energy just being in a new city, and I had a lot of like time on my hands being stuck at home throughout COVID. So I really like poured myself into it. I loved what I was doing. I was exciting. I loved having like the autonomy of like working in a startup and like being able to be creative. But then after about like 8-10 months into that, being into the new city, I started to just feel so like tired and burnt out and a little bit lost, like not seeing like those like my work result in anything, not seeing immediate like progress. And so then I got like really like discouraged and burnt out, and started to feel like I'm in Toronto. I need to make a little bit more money, with like rent being a bit more expensive here. So then I went to start a new job, also in financial services, this time not at a startup, but a bigger company, which has given me like a lot of kind of insight on like how a marketing department is run with having like a full budget, and it's like what it looks like when you have a fully blown out team, when you can invest in like market research and like work with advertising agencies and like bring in pros. So it's just been a very like valuable experience, and it's really kind of inspired me to learn more about different like types of marketing or like adjacent fields like UX research and UX design, which I'm studying now. And then personally on the side, like got a lot more involved with like my yoga teacher training. I realized that like there's just so much now that I want to learn, and like being outside of university has just given me the freedom to like explore my interests, and like having a little bit of like financial independence and like the flexibility of working from home, where it's like if you have an extra like 20 minutes in a day, like are between meetings, you can take a course, work on some of your own like projects as well.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think I love that. Just like being able to try new things, especially yeah, when you're like financially independent, like you don't have to ask your
Yeah.
parents or anyone for money. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And so Danny, you were saying that when you were 25, you recently moved to Toronto and you had tons of energy, and that changed little by little as the time went by. So I meant to ask, what did you think when you were 25? So like what was your vision of the world, or like what was your biggest belief? And I know that some people may think like, oh, it's only a year of difference, but it's a like 1 year makes a huge difference, especially
Totally.
what you went through. So I don't know what were your beliefs before this like process.
Yeah, I think that like moving to a new city had a huge impact on like the way that I like saw the world. Like when I was 25 as well. Originally like I'm like born and raised, lived in Alberta, like knew that, had a very like kind of narrow view. Like I'd traveled and I knew that there was more out there, but had never been like fully immersed in it. And so upon like graduating when I first turned 25, and I thought, oh, I've figured it out. Like I switched major once. I went from accounting to marketing. Like I know what I'm doing now. I know what I like. But then like the more you know, the more you realize that like you don't know. And I also realized like I'm really like, just because I have this degree or whatever, it doesn't entitle me to get these like positions that I want and have a job that is satisfying. Like that's something that you have to like carve out and create by yourself. And how like I think of how you do that is finding what you're really interested in and passionate about, and like continuously learning. Like within this last year I've learned that it's life isn't as linear as I thought it would be or hoped it would be, and always trying to like find stability or like being certain of something like won't necessarily work and won't help, because like things are always just changing and unpredictable.
Yeah, and I was about to like ask you that. So like from you were 25 to this day, what has changed? Either like in the world, in your environment, in yourself? How has that looked like?
How the world's changed so much through COVID, like just being able to work from anywhere. Within myself, I went from being really high energy and confident to like going through a dip and then realizing I need to like take care of myself, like my health, my mental health, all of that first, to have this like be something that is like sustainable, that like you can carry on like past the age of 25, to like have the energy, and that, yeah, that you've just like taken care of yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I find that even like because I know like you were at the Students Association and I was working there. Well, I work I like freelance, or like I was like contract or something. But yeah, at that age, you're like, I don't know, like we are like so driven and like
Yeah.
you can do this and like volunteer and like part-time job and like school. And like when you're like 18 to 23, like you can do it all. But then like the body keeps the count. Like
It
it's like
does.
you're like going like up, 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 and then you crash, because something similar happened to me too. It's like, okay, what am I doing all this for? Like, is this what I want, or is it am I doing something that somebody else wanted for me? You know,
Exactly.
like what goals am I following, mine or the ones that were like, implemented like by
Yeah, and
somebody
it's
or
interesting that you say that, because like this year I started working with a career counselor.
yeah,
And that is one of the reflections that I had, is it's like all of these goals and like ideas weren't necessarily my own. They were things that I had like absorbed from my parents, from my environment, from my friends, of like what I should be doing. And then just really realizing like, but what do I want to do? What do I care about? Like because nothing is like really guaranteed. And even if you put in that hard work and you do all the right things, like you don't know what the result will be. So you just have to do something that you really love doing either way.
Yeah, like if it doesn't work out well, at least you like enjoy the process, right?
Totally. And it's so much more about like that process and like what are you doing like daily to take care of yourself, to like be learning and not like just being fixed an outcome and setting yourself up for like disappointment when your expectations aren't met.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And Danny, so this is kind of like tied to the last question, but and you talk a little bit about what you do right now. So I meant to ask, so like, what do you do? And you mentioned about your work, and I also wanted to ask, like, but you can talk a little bit about your hobbies too. Like, so what are you doing now? Even like you can say like for like to take care of yourself. You mentioned that you're taking some courses for like yoga teaching. So yeah, if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, I don't know. So what do you do and what are your beliefs now that you've been on this learning process?
Yeah. So my belief now is like I want to start the things that I care about now, because it's like if you don't start it now, then when? But I've also seen that like putting time and energy into my interests helps build me as a person and helps build skills. Like I dived into the yoga teaching because it was something I was always passionate about, and I really wanted to like improve my health. I wanted to develop a personal practice, being at home to stay active, like especially while lockdowns were happening. And then like throughout that, I learned that there was an opportunity for me to learn so many other skills, like the ability to get up in front of a class and to like public speak and to present, and how that would really like help me in so many other parts of my life and professional life, that like I no longer saw it as a waste of time. And also like detaching kind of the hobbies and interests, whereas like when you live on somebody else's rules and their expectations, and they're like, oh well, that's not like a real career, but you're just putting that work into yourself and like the things that you care about, like there's so much value in that. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, and as long as you see the value, I think that's the important thing. Like even with this podcast, like my dad's like, "Oh, you're still doing that thing," and like he supports me, but he's like, "You're still doing that thing," and I'm like, "Yes, this got me an internship actually." So
Yeah, like you never know how these things will help or where it'll take you.
yeah, but I like that's what I like what you said, just like detaching, just doing it for fun and like because you enjoy it. I love that because yeah, that's why even like why I do the podcast, right? Like I enjoy talking with people and learning their stories. So I agree to like in what you say. And Danny, so I meant to ask, what have been your biggest challenge and how did you deal with it?
I think, well, my biggest challenge was really just like being, when I moved cities, like being new somewhere, like completely on my own. It was like I was like sucked in a bubble, like everybody else's opinions and whatever were 3,500 kilometers away in Calgary. It was really just like up to me. And when I first got here and being new to Toronto, I was just super lonely, super lost, and kind of like I was very excited to be there, but I also was like, this is what I wanted so badly, and it's so hard, and it's like, and now what? Like, it's like there was the buildup of like packing my stuff, driving across the country, like saying goodbye to all my friends, like this really amazing life that I built, that I like upon leaving became like so much more grateful for. And then just being in a new place with no real plan, like I wasn't going to school, I wasn't there for a job, like I had like not a lot of direction. And so then it really became about like, well, what do I care about, what do I want, like what am I going to do with this space? Like no one has any expectation of me, like they don't know who I am, I'm free to just be whoever I want to be, which was like terrifying. It was so terrifying. And I had to like really face myself and take ownership for what I like my small habits and my goals. And yeah, and so since then, and like overcoming it, I've really just tried to be true to myself, stay like consistent, being patient, knowing that like, okay, if it didn't turn out exactly as I hoped or as I thought, just keep going and like try again.
Yeah, I can imagine like just coming into this huge city and like by yourself. Yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, it's kind of like similar. Like I get you because that's how like when I arrived in Calgary too, it's like, oh, this new
Yeah.
city. But like I find that even like working on your hobbies, right? Finding people with a similar mindset, you slowly
Mhm.
start building your tribe. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Danny. And I meant to ask, what has motivated you or what motivates you?
That's something that I am kind of trying to figure out. I thought that it was money for a really long time and then realized that it wasn't. Like, I'm really motivated most by just finding opportunities to like to learn and like to further just like dig into something that truly interests me, because I feel like that gives me the energy and motivation to like be persistent.
Are there any like kind of things that interest you? Like what
Yeah, so like
interests
with
you?
my yoga teaching, I really want to learn how to like be an amazing instructor who can lead students through a practice, and like help them like feel themselves in their body and in their mind and feel like really safe in my class. And so I'm motivated by sharing like my experience with others, and so that keeps me like continuously like going to my own classes, pushing myself to like, get up and lead a class on my own, even though it's something that is like very scary and that I'm not like quite confident in yet. So yeah, being just, I guess, motivated by that and having like just the faith that everything will be okay. It's like no one's necessarily like up there like judging me, or it's just, it's okay, and like accepting myself and my mistakes.
Yeah, I feel like we all feel that way. Like, oh, like this, like, oh, what will people think? But I find, like, I don't know, like people. I feel it's funny because we think, oh, what will other people think? Blah blah blah. They're gonna judge me, but they're also thinking the same thing. So like everyone's,
Totally.
like I was talking with a friend the other day, and she was I don't know, she was busy with something. She had this like party and she wanted to make sure everything looked good. And she said, like, no one cares except with me, but I still worry. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really sweet that she said that because yeah, like everyone's pretty and everyone's really nice. Everyone's like if you I don't know, like in your class or I don't know, like during a speech you stumble, people are like supportive.
Yeah, no,
Um
they are supportive, totally. And just learning that like other people have like love and compassion and kindness towards you, and that they're not necessarily trying to like rip you down. Like honestly, like as you were just talking, like I was thinking what's probably motivated me the most is fear, which I don't love. And I want to be like in control of my own life, and I don't want to be motivated by like fear of failure, fear of not having money, like ending up on the street. Like I don't want that to drive me.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I get you. So, Danny, we only have like 9 minutes left, so I will
Yeah.
try to be quick. But I meant to ask, you were saying that a little bit. So, what are your goals or plans for the future?
My goals and plans for the future is eventually I would really love to be able to work as a freelancer or a consultant, so that like my destiny is like really in my own hands. I love when the work that I do, I see it like pay off for myself. So right now I'm just trying to like learn and acquire skills that would let me like go out and do that so that I can be independent from like an employer. And then within that gives me the freedom to explore my interests, to pivot, and I've been planting like small seeds everywhere, whether it's like learning about UX, practicing my yoga teaching. I eventually want to combine those together and build my own app or website, so that I could almost like be my first client and make that like my the first thing that I do in my portfolio. So yeah.
Your own startup.
Yes, I love that.
Me too. Keep me posted on how that
I
goes.
will.
And Dani, what will you say to those who are on this like age, 25, or like youth, 20 somethings in general, who in this moment they may feel lost or stuck, not yet where they want to be, or even to those who think that they know everything and have everything figured out?
I've been telling like this to my brother because he's just now going to university, but just stay patient with yourself. Do what interests you. Don't like follow other people's paths necessarily, because if it doesn't feel right for you, it won't work out in the long run. Really just like, but when you can stop comparing yourself and you can like add separation, I think it gives you a lot just more opportunity to like chase what's actually important to you. And it also helps like just move forward from like staying present and like moving forward where you're not like shaming yourself for like past mistakes and or being anxious for the future, but like staying grounded, I think can have just so many benefits to making sure that you're healthy and happy.
Thank you. And Dani, is there anything else that you'd like to share that you think it's important and I didn't ask?
I just think that it's important to recognize that like everyone goes through this struggle at some point. I think it's common for it to happen around 25 because you've gotten enough like experience to understand like yourself and the world around you, that like by this time you start to kind of like question like, what am I doing? What is my impact? Like what's important to me? But I really believe that like this is something that everyone struggles through or that like faces some sort of anxiety about. And yeah.
Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, it's just like, well, when are we supposed to figure it out? But I was interviewing someone and she said, you can even like, you have to until you're 40 to figure it out. So like, don't worry about it.
Well, and then even what is figuring it out? Like
Exactly.
That looks so different to every person.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dani, for your time and for sharing your experience and your story.
Yes, thanks for having me. It was great to connect with you again, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the episode or you think it will be helpful for someone, feel free to share. You can also find the written stories at medium.com/project25. If you know someone who would like to share their experience being 25, you can send me a message at the email that's on the episode description or through our social media channels, which are also listed on the episode description. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.